Okay, for this part of the tutorial, we're going to focus on building some walls for our basement. Now, in my previous video, I covered how I made the complete basement for the site, in essence. So if we go manage links, we bring back our links in essence. So if we bring back our site context, reload, you'll see that I've built the rest of the information. I've built the slabs for the rest of these buildings in essence. Okay. Here you might have to fine tune it to work with your slab, but in essence you'll see once you get the hang of this, you'll start making these adjustments quite easily. Okay, you might have to increase, so you might have to open the site model, increase the size of your basement. Okay, but anyway, now that we've got our basement in the right location, what we need to start doing now is adding some walls to the basement. So concrete walls, etc., brick walls, you name it. So here you can go and switch this off. So unload this again because we don't need it. Good. Now in my basement 1 or basement 2, it doesn't matter what level you're working at. So maybe basement 2 for this. Now just bear in mind, when you start having a lot of tabs open at the top, you'll need to use the view command and you need to deactivate or close inactive views. Okay, I want to focus on basement 2. So this is a good example. This is great because it allows me to use this whole basement. Okay, so we know that there's another basement over here, but I'm going to use this information to show you how to draw walls around this information, for example. Okay, for now, what I want you to consider is what type of concrete wall you need to use for your basement. Okay, so if you go to architecture and we go to walls, we go to walls architecture, remember for all that we do, everything that we create, we use architectural walls. We don't use structural walls. Okay, so walls architecture. You could in this case use a structural wall rather, but in essence, let's just stick to the walls that we know. So currently, these are the walls that we have in the model. Okay, so if I go to the 330 concrete wall and I go to edit, so what I need to do is I need to duplicate this wall. I'm going to make this a 300 concrete wall. Okay, now if I go to edit, like we did with our floor slab, I'll make this 300. So this is pretty straightforward and this is a structural element. Now, one thing to consider with walls that is different to floor slabs, okay? Here you can see you get a plan view and you get a section view, okay, of the wall. Now, what is interesting, you'll notice in the layer makeup, you've got an exterior side on this side and you've got an interior side on this side of the layer. So basically all the layers on this side face the exterior. All the layers that are on this side of the core will be interior. Okay, and this is very important to understand. Okay, this is a structure. This will be a structural material. Now you can also wrap ends and do all types of wrapping when you come to windows and that, but don't worry about that for the time being. We'll focus on that information later on when we need to make different types of wall types. Okay, but in essence, we've made a new wall. Press OK. Okay, so you need to understand that the wall has a certain function in terms of what side of the material and the layers, the way they work, is exterior and interior. Now with the function, you can also set this to be interior and exterior, but this doesn't really, you can set this to be a retaining wall, so you can be quite specific. So you can use this to categorize your walls even further. Okay, that does help. Okay, now that I've got my concrete wall, I'm going to press apply and press OK. Okay, the same thing applies with fine level of detail. So if you go to edit type, same thing applies. You can set the different colors when you're working in coarse view. So I'm going to change that to fine. Okay, great. Now, the wall command was active because we activated the wall command. You need to set how the wall works. So you're always going to say the wall's going to go up. It's going to go to the underside of level 0. Okay, and we know there's going to be an offset that's going to be applied, so minus 510, because technically that wall, that top slab is 510, so the wall will be 510 lower. It will terminate 510 mil lower than level 0. Okay, you're going to say chain. Now it's asking you, when you draw this wall, what type of line should you use? Location line. So center line, core. For this example, I'm going to say core face exterior. Now, as you start drawing the wall, you'll notice it will offset in a direction. Okay, so that offset is that command there, so make it 0. So when you draw the wall, and you press space bar, so if you're busy drawing, space bar usually flips the wall in a direction. Okay, so if I draw the wall now, and I press space bar, you'll see it'll flip the wall. Now wherever these handles, this location, change orientation marker is located, that's indicating that this part is the exterior side of the wall, and that this is the interior side of that wall. So if we go back to edit, and we go back to edit again, so whatever's on the interior side, and whatever on the exterior side of this layer makeup. So that's exterior, this is interior. Okay, you'll see when we'll make different wall types how that applies. Okay, now I know I need to put a wall along here. Okay, so if I cut a section through, you'll notice that my wall is now running on this side. Okay, so that's good to know. Go back to this plan. Now I can simply right click and create similar. So it starts creating walls again with the same, and if you just make sure all these settings are the same, okay, and you'll see that it's kept the level, everything the same. So now I can simply finish the command, carry on drawing. Remember, you can use rectangle, you can use all these different shapes as well to create walls. Okay, so I'm going to finish. Good. So if I press escape now and I press tab, you'll notice that I've got a chain of walls. And if I go to 3D view, you'll notice now that I've got an enclosed basement with exterior walls. Okay, now if I go back to basement 2 and I go back to section, now all of these walls need to be offset, so the top offset needs to be adjusted so that they finish to the underside of the slab. So you can simply select the wall and then drag down this marker and snap it, and you can see it tells you. Now that is fine. However, if you want to change all the walls in one go, you can simply go to the plan view and you press tab once when you're hovering on the wall. It finds all the connected and same type of walls, and here you can simply change this offset to -510. Now if we go back, you would have noticed that's worked way better. Okay, now we've noticed that this floor slab, if I go and edit this boundary 1, and please note that I've drawn the wall from basement 2 to level 0, because in essence that's how it's going to function. So you won't have to draw a wall up to there and copy up another wall. Okay, there are circumstances when the interior walls that you use that approach, but in essence I know that this concrete wall is going to go from B2 to level 0. Okay, now if I go to basement 1 and switch this to fine, and I select everything, and I use the filter tool and I select the slab, I can quickly adjust the slab. So edit boundary, you'll see that I can adjust this now to match the interior side of the wall. So I can simply use the offset command, switch off copy, make this 300. Sometimes you've got to click this command again, tab on one channel wall and say offset. Now if I go to my section now, you would have noticed that would have stopped. Okay, now that we've got our floors and walls in place in the basement, in essence, we can start joining these elements together so that they read correctly. Now it's important to make sure that they share the same material. If they share the same material, they will join seamlessly together. So if you've got the same material for the wall as you do for the floor slab or the concrete slab, because technically this is all a structural element. If I go to edit here, see it's got the same material. Now if I simply use the join command, so select the floor and I use the join command, okay, join, you'll notice these elements will start joining together seamlessly. Okay, you might have to do the same this side. You can also use So you go back, click on the wall, join. Okay, you can use filled regions as well. Okay, there are different ways to do this, but you can say join, and you can join that to that, to that, to that, and that to that. Good, so in this section you can see we've got a complete basement, floor and walls, and if you now go to your 3D view, just note that these are not joined yet, so you can join that to make it look like a complete box. Okay, now if I go to VG, now switch on my annotation objects, just remember we can switch this on and off, and I press all, scroll down to section box because I don't want a lot of other stuff to pollute this view. So I typically make a duplicate of my 3D view and make that like a working 3D view. Okay, so let's do that quickly. So VG, switch this back on. Then what I'm going to do is, here's my section box, that's what I need. I'm going to duplicate this view, duplicate. So in your views here, right click, duplicate with detailing. And give this a new name, rename. Call that 3D WK. So now in this WK view, okay, VG, annotation, all, off, go to section box. So now if I use the section box quickly, I can use this view quite rapidly to kind of see how I'm working. Okay, so this is actually quite neat because I think a lot of you are still battling, you're just seeing too much information, it gets a bit overwhelming. But now if I go and look in 3D view, and I change this information to realistic even, you'll start getting the real materials, so you'll actually start seeing this information in quite a lot of detail now. Okay, because you can see how the floor slabs are set up correctly, etc, etc, etc. Okay, back to hidden. So now I'm starting to get a good idea of how this information is coming together. So now if I go to level 0, so what I'm going to focus on doing now is start getting my walls in the right location, etc. Now on level 0, I don't actually know the footprint of my building yet, so I can use an overlay function. So an overlay allows me to look at views above as an overlay, so I can do coordination. So I can see, here's my slab outline. Okay, so that's important. So what I'm going to do very quickly, this is totally up to you. You can do it or you don't have to do it. I just want to establish a property boundary in my building model so that I have a clear indication where my property boundary is. Ideally, you should have done this in your site model as well, but for now, I'm just going to replicate this in my building model because it will give me some constraints to work with on all my different levels. Press OK. Okay. Now, in essence, that makes a bit of line work, and that tells me that's and it tells you it's a property line. It's a building line. Okay, so you can't cross that. Okay. Now, if I go back, so level 0, so if we go to architecture and we go to walls, architectural walls. So we've got a couple walls already that we can use in our basement. So we've got a 110 masonry wall and we've got a 220 masonry wall. Okay. 230, 210, some people round them off differently. Okay. So, and we've got a curtain wall system that we'll get to later. However, I need to start using timber frame construction, or we'll need to use metal stud walls. So let's quickly see how we'll do that. So I'm going to use the 110 wall. I'm going to go edit type and I'm going to duplicate it. Okay, I'm going to call this. So I'm going to give you access to a library where you can go and get more information as well. So if you go to OKU 300, support, and you go to BIM library. Now, in BIM library, if you go to library, you go to products, building products. Now, there's drywalling, so open that up. Have this open in a browser, so open. We'll get to that in a minute. Go back to products and let's go to timber. And we're going to build a quick timber wall based on the grading specification. Okay, so this we can open in a browser as well. Okay. We'll just go back, close that. library, building products, timber. Okay, so that I'm going to open in the browser as well. Okay, open that in browser. Good. Now, once you've got this timber size, okay, so we're going to use a 97. In Revit, what we're going to call this is a 97 timber stud. Okay, 97 timber stud. Now this will change because this becomes a timber wall. It's no longer masonry. Okay, 97 timber, edit. Now this will work. It's going to be a substrate. Now this will change. This timber, so if you type in timber, so if you can't find the material over here and you've activated, just remember, a lot of you, if you can't see the materials, it's actually hidden here. So pull this up, and in search in AC materials, maximize that, but you should start seeing some timber here. So now if you go and look at this information, you'll find something that you can use. And I'm going to use timber C16. It's a grade of wood, so I'm just going to use that and add that up to my library. Now I've just got to change the cut pattern or the fill pattern, so I'm going to make that solid fill and I'm going to make that timber. Okay, it's given me the rest of the information as I needed, all the structural, physical, etc. Press apply, press OK. Now I've got a timber stud wall. Now I'm going to insert, I'm going to add a layer. Now this layer, just remember, this is the exterior side, this is the interior side. I'm going to move that outside of the core area and I'm going to change this to a finish. Okay, likewise, I'm going to create another one and I'm going to move that down. Okay, now this one will also be a finish and it'll be the same finish as that. Now you're going to go and add a material here. You're going to call this plaster. So start typing in plasterboard. You want gypsum wallboard, that will work perfectly. Grab, and that's 15 mil generally. Just remember, if it's a firewall, you might increase the thickness of your gypsum because they'll put 2 layers of gypsum wallboard. Okay, so they'll put 2 layers at staggered joints to give you the correct fire rating. Okay, so it'll be plasterboard in essence. Okay, now if we go and say preview and we go to plan, and now in plan, if we wrap ends exterior, you'll see that it will start wrapping and you tell it to wrap. Okay, so if you go wrap exterior, interior and ends, you see it will wrap the material. So if the board stops, it'll wrap the ends. Now generally we don't do this, we make different types. So for now, don't stress about this too much. If you need a wall to finish in a certain way, I'll show you how to do that, but for now let's just leave this as it is. Okay, you can tell this wrap it exterior. Okay, that's only if one of these didn't wrap. If they both wrap in essence. So here you can see at inserts, so where you insert something but where the wall ends, it wraps it exterior. Okay, so if things are getting inserted, you can say both, so like a window or anything like that, or a door opening. Okay, so you're just going to say do not wrap for this example. You might have different types in certain scenarios, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to say none for now. I'm going to press OK. Okay, so I've got my timber stud wall, press apply, press OK. Now I can start drawing my timber stud wall. Just remember, for this wall, when you're drawing the wall for this level, if you go to wall, make sure that you say height. So we're working on level 0, it's going to go up to level 1, which is correct. But if you go to section, so just move this through so we can see it through section. Remember, this will need to drop to match, so that offset is 380. So you need to tab and select all of these walls. Okay, so you might have to go to basement, sorry, ground floor, level 0. Select all of these walls and make sure that they are set to minus. Okay, but what's interesting, if this wall's preset with the correct offset, minus 380, you can use the match property tools to apply to the rest of the walls. Match, so you want to match that and apply to, okay, so you want to match properties, select this wall, and you want to apply it to these other walls. Okay, so these other walls, make sure that they're all minus 380. Okay. MA match property, so you want that to apply to that. Okay, so if you go to 3D view now, or elevation, let's just go to section rather, close that view, section, you'll see that these will terminate to the underside of this timber slab. Now sometimes these will be lower because you might have a suspended ceiling. These don't typically go all the way up to the underside of the slab, so that'll vary depending on your fire compartmentalization. Okay, so you'll need to design that and factor that in. Okay, so level 0 again, we can duplicate this wall, so copy this wall. We can turn that into a timber stud wall. So if we go back to our library, and you go and scroll through this guide that I've given you, this is typical timber studs that we use in South Africa, plasterboard types of walls. So here you can see the different types of plasterboard makeup. Okay, the different thicknesses. Okay, so you get an 88 to 89, you get a 75 to 76. Here they give you all the specifications, and this is a 30-minute fire rating because it's got a board interior and exterior. If they put a double board, like I was saying, then it becomes a much more fire-resistant wall. Okay, so you can add, so you can see these combinations just give you more flexibility, but I'm going to make this an 89 stud wall. Okay, so this is very easy to do now. So once I've got a timber wall in place, edit, so I'm going to duplicate that, so that'll be an 89 stud wall. Let me just double check. That's going to be an 89 stud wall. So edit type, 89, okay, and that will be metal stud. So you're going to go and so steel stud, so or metal, so it's going to be metal. There is a metal stud layer, metal panel, there you go, metal stud layer, just like that. Double click that, make that the layer, and you see that changes to gray. Okay, so that's good. So edit type, that's going to be okay. Press apply and make sure that was 89. So that's, I made a mistake there. 89. Press OK. Okay. Duplicate. Cancel. I've just made a mistake there. Edit type. Duplicate. 89. Metal stud, 89, and that's going to go, change that to metal stud. Good. Press OK, press apply, press OK. Okay, now we've got a timber stud, so a metal stud wall that will join a timber stud wall. Okay, so what's interesting, if we switch off line weights, you'll notice that the materials, so the way they're being classified, so if we go back to the wall type, so edit type, you'll notice that provided each of these categories matches, so that finish and that finish matches the timber stud's finish, they will join seamlessly. Okay, so just bear that in mind. It's something to consider. Okay. Press OK. Press apply. Press OK. Okay. Great, so that's starting to work well. We just might have to edit the material so that looks correct. So let's just go and say edit type. Let's just make sure that this reads correctly. Metal studs. So let's go to graphics. So here, foreground. And just pick a very light gray color, just so we know. So just understand that we don't show all the detail at the scale. If you want to show your metal stud systems, we'll draft that in later when you get to more detail. Okay, but in essence, we've got a timber stud wall and we've got a metal stud wall. Okay, and they're always going to finish with an offset, okay, underside the slab. Okay, so that's important to know. So I'm just going to drag this wall back, and you see they keep that relationship. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so you can see that works pretty well. So we've learned to make some floor types, wall types. Okay, the last thing I'm going to focus on this exercise is just the exterior shop fronts. Okay, so we've got an exterior shop front that runs along there, and an exterior shop front that runs along there. Okay, so there's two ways to do this. So maybe on this facade, so if I go to architecture, I'm going to use a concrete wall. So I'm going to show you some variations. So I'm going to use a concrete wall, and remember, core face exterior. And if I drag a concrete wall from there to there, okay, if I go to, and by the way, your party walls will probably need to be a stud layer that runs in this direction. So you'll need to put a stud wall. So you'll need to create some sort of party wall on your side, which is either a timber wall. So maybe let me explain how to make that very quickly, because you're going to have a party wall here. So if I go to edit type. So if you go to edit type now, let's say duplicate. I'm going to call this timber stud party wall. Okay. It just means that the wall is shared. Okay, party wall. Okay, now if I go to edit type, so if I say the interior side of this doesn't have a material. So if I remove that, delete, so if I look at the wall now, so the exterior side has a finish, the interior doesn't, and I press OK. Press apply, press OK. Now you'll notice when I select the wall, and now when you're using a wall, you'll see it's got this location line. So when we started drawing a wall earlier, you can set how this works. So you can say core center line. Now whatever is within those core layers, that will use that as a center, or you can say finish exterior. So let's just go back and explain that a bit more. So if I go to edit type, so whatever within this core layer falls within the core. This is on a finished side, so this is finished material. Whatever past this core layer is finished. Okay, now please note something. When you dimension walls, we dimension their structural or their core boundaries, not their finishes. We don't dimension finishes because dimensions can vary wildly. Okay, so let's select this wall. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. So technically my party wall, if I move this, I can put the timber stud right against there. My apologies, move it back. Or you can give it a cavity. So timber could sit right against that, so that becomes my party wall. Or what I might do is just move this away a bit. Move this away by 50 mil. Then you start getting that arrangement. Now because these walls are joined, they start working together, so let's just remove that function. Okay, now I could take this to the next level. I could go to edit type, I can go to edit. Now I can add a layer, so I'm going to go insert, I'm going to move this down, I'm going to incorporate an air layer, so maybe an insulation or a thermal air barrier, so that's a cavity of 50 mil. Okay, now it's showing me, and that will be air. There's actually a material called air, because air does have some thermal characteristics. It'll have thermal characteristics and heat transfer. So I'm going to press OK, press OK, press apply, press OK. Now what this does give me, this now gives me a wall. So if I select this wall and I tell this wall must behave in a certain way. So I'm going to go and say core finish interior. Okay, so finish interior. Now you can see the grips of the wall work on that layer. So now if I want to show my party wall in that direction, sorry, this wall must go past. That's the problem, is trying to join. So this wall must terminate here. Okay, now you don't want that air layer to do that. In essence, your air layer should not do that. So maybe in this instance I'll make it a membrane layer, because your structure layer should take precedent. Okay, but let's leave that like that for now. Let's say it's air. If that does happen, you can select and you can modify how the wall joins. So you can change. So if I select on the wall and I go to join, modify join, and I select on that join, it'll give me options on how the wall should. Okay, so this is a problem. That air layer is going to cause a problem. Okay, so basically I'm going to go to edit boundary, and I'm going to change that air layer so that I'm going to change to a membrane layer. Press OK. Okay, so it has to be air. My apologies. Air, press OK. Now, in order to circumvent that, pull this in that direction, you pull this like that. Now, when this wall joins, before you join it, you click on this intersection dot. You're going to say disallow join, and you're going to simply snap it to that wall. It's telling you that they're no longer joined. It's just so we don't have that error where we've got that thermal gap. Okay, sometimes you can take this wall past and then you can say allow join, then it works. Okay, so it's just because that thermal layer, now it's working. Interesting. So let's take it past. It should join now. Yeah, so that air layer, but if I took it past, you won't have that issue. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind. Okay, so if I bring it back, then it works. So that's very interesting. Okay, but anyway, so this becomes your party wall in essence. Okay, grab this wall, create similar. Remember, face interior, and then you press spacebar to work on the other side. So technically I've got a party wall there and a party wall there. What is interesting, from the exterior, you're not going to see that thermal gap. You're not going to see that thermal layer because it makes it read as a layer. Okay, so it's just one of those weird situations. But if you don't want that to happen, just pull that past, pull this wall in that direction, pull this back, and then disallow joint. Okay, so if you want to get around that, disallow joint, or pull this wall past, and just disallow this joint, for example. So disallow that joint and pull this back to there. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind when working with these walls. Good. All right, so in essence, we have a thermal barrier. Now, if I dimension this wall, so this is something to bear in mind. If I dimension a wall, if I start dimensioning, it's going to ask you to pick wall center lines, wall core. So we always use the wall. So we're always going to say face core. So it'll always pick that dimension. You'll see now it will only pick that dimension. Okay. So that's important to understand. I can make it snap to there, so I know I've got that offset, but in essence, that is my wall thickness. This is a finish layer. Okay, so bear that in mind. Good. Now if I go to 3D view, these walls are going to take up to the top. So I've got a concrete wall on this facade. Okay, but now what's interesting about a concrete wall, if I go to architecture and I go to walls now, so walls, now I'm going to use a shop front. So I'm going to use this curtain wall system. I'm going to duplicate it, edit type, I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to call this shop front. Okay, shop front 1. Now I'm going to change all of these characteristics. I'm going to change it to a different type of mullion. Now these mullions you can go and add. I would recommend you go and watch the videos on how to work with curtain wall systems. Okay, this is just a kind of an introduction on how to start progressing your models. Okay, press apply. Good. Now I'm going to set the vertical layouts. So the verticals, not the horizontals. I'm going to set the verticals at a maximum spacing, I'm going to make that 1800. Okay, press apply, press OK. Now I'm going to make sure that this wall embeds. So what it means by embedding, if you've drawn a concrete wall here and you start drawing a shop front, so say now this shop front starts and goes to level 0. So we're going to use the same level as what we're working. So let's say level 1, the floor slab above, and I'll start drawing the wall. Now when I put the shop front in, now you'll see that, and you'll notice that this flip angle, so this is the exterior side of the wall. If I go to 3D view now, you will notice now that I've drawn in a shop front and it will embed itself in this concrete wall. Now I can change this at any stage. So here you're combining a wall within a wall, because technically this is a wall, but this is a shop front, so it works slightly differently. And here you can go and play with these levels. So what I could maybe do here, say level 0 again, and I'm going to say top offset, make this 1.8, so make this 2.400. So basically I've told it, stick with level 0 and offset from there. So I'm using, this will be 2.400 high. Okay, so that's one way to do it. You associate it to the same level, but you tell it to offset from the top constraint by 2.400. You can also give it a base offset by 900. So now it becomes like a window. Okay, so these become like windows now. So that's quite handy. Okay, but let's just reset that. And now I can make this 0, and I can leave that. Just remember, you're going to have these walls we need to start adjusting in so they don't interfere with the walls. Okay, so that's quite quick. And this is a neat trick, so you can go and edit in 3D view, align. So now they've got a wall to work with. I can pick this face and align that. Okay, and then finish the command. Don't attach. Generally don't try and attach the walls. I'll explain why later on, but now you can see the rest of these walls. So now that these floors will follow the same type of convention, I can delete them, and I can simply tell even that one maybe. I can simply select that floor slab, copy, paste, and I'm going to paste this align to select levels, and I'm going to paste these to okay, so now let's put those slabs. Okay, now I can do the same with this. I can simply grab this and I can do exactly the same, copy, paste, align to selected levels, and I can do exactly the same. So now I can put these windows and I can get rid of this one over here. Okay, so that's very handy to know. Okay, so I'm going to go and create the same type of, so there's lots of videos on how to use these wall types, and you can move them once they're embedded. You can move them. Just remember, you might have to do this on every floor now, so fix it on one level and replace the rest going up. Okay, if you go to section view now, you'll see that this will start cutting through the elevations and the information will start reading correctly. Okay, very handy, very, very handy. Okay, all right, now that I've kind of got my walls in place, let's just go back to level 0. I'm just going to use a shop front for this whole exterior side here quickly and just give you a quick rundown of how powerful the shop front window types are. So I'm going to use the same one. Now when you're placing your wall, before you finish the command, just remember, place the wall, make sure that the interior and exterior side are in the right location, so it was in the wrong direction, and now I'm going to move the wall back into its location, so let's move this flush to the exterior. Okay, now this wall, if I tab on this wall, I want this wall to go all the way, so select this wall, I want this wall to go from level 0 all the way to level 8. I want this curtain wall to go all the way to the top, and that'll be minus 380. Okay, now if I go to an elevation view, sometimes these are easier to work with in an elevation view, and I change this to hidden. You can see now I've got this works, I've drawn the whole facade in glass. That's excellent. Now these floor slabs, if I go to edit type, now you need to decide, maybe this floor slab will work on the inside of this mullion. So I'm going to snap that face there and align it like that. And I'm going to say finish. Don't attach. And now I can repeat that. So I'm going to select all of this information, delete that one, delete that one, delete that one, and delete that one. Copy this floor slab again. So copy, paste, align to selected levels. I'm doing this again and again just so that you get the feel for how quick this is to kind of get your building modeled quickly. So now if I go to section view, you'll notice that the slab edge works correctly. So section AA. So on this side of the building, you'll notice now how this works. Now, if we go to elevation view, what it allows you to do now is if I show hidden, because I want to see the floor slabs in the background, okay? But I know the levels, I've got the levels, so I kind of know what I need to do. So what it allows me to do is it allows me to introduce grids now. So I'm going to drop a grid in there. So what it's done is it creates a whole new mullion system to work with this floor. So I'm going to, when you tab this mullion, you tab once or twice. It'll allow you to select the center line of that mullion, and I'm going to move this down because typically this will start on top of the slab. Now with the center line selected, I'm going to press Ctrl 1. I'm going to copy this down now. Copy that down. And I'm going to copy that down by 450. This varies. You need to work out how thick your slab's going to be. In theory, you'll need to work out how thick your slab will be. And your ceiling, for example, they usually put a frosted panel. Okay, I'm just showing you very quickly how this works. Now if I press tab and I select that and I press tab again and I press Control and I copy this between my slabs now, you'll notice I can very quickly create a curtain wall system for this facade. This is slightly different because you're going to have, so maybe just this one I would copy just like that, copy, and I would use this as my reference level. Good. Okay, now if I go to 3D view, so my exterior facade, okay, it's very powerful, very easy to use once you start getting the hang of this. And at any point, if I go to my exterior elevation, south, okay, if I tab on this, I can remove that mullion and I can insert a door here now. So unpin that panel. Now you can go and load glazing panels and doors. So I can insert a door. If I go to 3D view now, you would have noticed now I've got a door at that level. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to stop that there. I think there's enough information for you to start drawing your walls and putting your walls in and getting your floors in place. In my next video, I'll cover all the columns, etc.